So, good evening everybody, can you hear me? Yeah, just about. So we've already got 10 minutes each to speak, so let's dive straight in. So to that question, if the structure of our industry is broken, what do strategists do next? I think there are only three possible answers you can give to that question. One is help fix the industry. Two is leave the industry. And three is don't leave the industry, but don't help fix it. And that third option might sound a bit odd, doesn't it? But I suspect it might be the most common. Because I think it's easy to imagine that fixing the industry is something that other people do. We do our jobs, and then there are these sort of industry leaders that go about industry fixing. And they're captains of industry, and they head up our groups, and that's what they do, and it's nothing to do with what we do. So I suspect a lot of people have that answer and probably feel a bit stuck. And so I guess I'm sort of aiming my chat mostly at the people who feel they want to stay in our industry. They don't really know how to fix it, so what can be done? And the way I'd like to suggest it is we look at the issue slightly differently. And we see the industry actually as a sum total of everything that we all do. So the industry is nothing more than the collection of all the decisions that we make, all the actions that we go about, and all the processes that we decide to follow or not follow. That is the industry. So it is possible to influence it because it is only us. There is something else going on called the industry, and then there's us doing our day jobs. So they're one and the same, and we all comprise the industry. So what we do is the industry. So actually there's a very direct connection people can make between what they do and this potentially broken industry that we're in. So let's just quickly remind ourselves of what is broken. And I wanted to start the story with a couple of articles. One of the benefits of being an industry that's a bit challenged is everyone loves to write about it. Everyone likes a bit of bad news. So there's tons of articles, and you can read a lot. So two articles. It doesn't matter that you haven't read them. And I got them here. Why am I showing you these? Well, let me tell you about them. This one here, on the left-hand side, this is done by high-profile management consultants at Harvard Business School. And so's this one. It's also done by McKinsey's. This one uses a lot of original research, thousands of consumers and respondents asking about hundreds of brands. And so does this one. This one did its work in 2017, and so did this one. Why am I labouring the similarities between these two reports? Because despite all that, and these two highly credible sources, they came to two completely different conclusions about what's the best way to grow business these days. So Harvard said the right answer is businesses must focus on the kind of downstream, post-purchase area of the buying decision, focus on user experience. The McKinsey's report focused on the upstream part of the buying process, pre-buying brand consideration. So quite Byron Sharpie. We're both familiar with these positions. It doesn't really matter what they are. The point is they're completely different from two sets of incredibly experienced business observers. And the point is not really to debate what the right answer is. It's to recognise that even some of the cleverest people with research end up with a different view, and they don't agree. And you see similar sort of disagreement, don't you, in our industry? It's not just the consultants. You see that debate happening in rooms like this or in our trade press, and it's quite rare to see people really agreeing. So what's a planner to think? I mean, how are you supposed to advise your clients when it's not quite clear what is the right kind of advice to be giving them? But maybe more important is what's a client think? Because if our industry is struggling to find out what's the right model to work from, why should they be paying us? because we're guessing. I don't know if you saw was it last Friday, Mark Pritchard, P&G, global brand executive, had a pretty harsh speech to make about our industry. I think he was in an exceedingly bad mood. This is my Mark Pritchard emojis. And so he spoke, familiar themes, but tough stuff. He spoke about, again, cutting agency roster by thousands of agencies, cutting production spends, complaining we have too many overheads, not enough transparency, especially in digital media, not enough creative people. His view is we should be at least kind of 70% headcount in some form of imagination in all our different kind of companies. And that media and creative is ridiculous to be apart. Tough stuff. But here's the kicker. He talked about a very determined strategy where P&G will start doing a lot more agency services in-house. Now, we've heard this before, but let's think about that for a moment. Taking it in-house. So we work for agencies. We are agents of clients. So we're an intermediary between them and media, or them and the entertainment industry, or the tech industry, or the culture industry, however you like to think about it. And our existence, the only reason we'd get paid, is if we can do something better than the clients think they can do it themselves. And then it's worth outsourcing to us. And the moment they start thinking they can in-house it, it's because they've begun to lose some belief in our ability to do it better than them. So it's an extremely significant moment when clients are starting to talk about that. And to add insult to injury, he used the phrase taking back control. And you know you're in trouble when clients are describing your industry using the Boris Johnson Brexit phrasebook. But I'm not picking on Mr. Pritchard at all. You've heard pretty similar refrains, haven't you, from Unilever and many other clients. But when the industry's two biggest clients are telling the industry what it needs to do, we've somehow lost control of the narrative, which is in part because we're not quite sure what the right narrative is. And this point of narrative is important. So what's a planner to do? What's a client to do? But what's an investor to do? And the answer appears to be sell. You've seen these in the press, nothing new here. This is the stock price of the major ad groups indexed back in time. And you can see things start falling off a cliff around about the middle of last year. And I've always liked that quote that says, the future happens very slowly and then all at once. And it does feel a bit like that in our industry, doesn't it? The future's been happening for an extremely long time and then it happened, which is kind of a bit what that graph actually looks like with that big fall there at the beginning of last year. Now, there's a debate, of course, is this cyclical or is this structural? And it's probably true to say that marketing spend is going to come back probably middle of this year, as it always does when there's a World Cup. Probably reasonable to assume some of the growth markets are going to come back a little bit. Certainly India after a terrible 2017. But no doubt there are some disruptions going on and some changes that are going to continue to not help. So that's the kind of broken bit, and this is familiar stuff. But let's have a look at the fixing bit. And let's take a look at what people are up to try and get over this. And we can begin to get a view of what planners can do here. And I've just tried to gather together what I think are the strategies that are being employed. So I've got 5. There may be less or maybe more, but we'll take 5 for the moment. And I'm going to do these really fast. And I'd like you, as I go through them, please, to decide on your favourite. So which one do you think, if you had to vote for it, which one would you choose to make the biggest difference to some of the things that we've mentioned? So I'll do these really quickly, because you'll know them. So the point is more the view on it than what they are. So consolidation, familiar term, putting together previously separate units of capability and putting them in one, so you can gather all the very best talent together, create a leaner, faster, more agile organization that could be faster for clients and have better specialisms. Again, lots of people doing that, but you see WPP doing that, putting together all their PR agencies, putting together all their consultancies, and of course WPP have done it with research as well. So clear stuff. Secondly, simplification. So let's remove that complexity that exists, which can be structural, can be financial, can be in process and how things work. Let's streamline that, because clients need to use a lot of different services. Let's make that easy, make it faster. And I guess much of that dialogue has come from Publicis, hasn't it, with the creation of Publicis One. You know, one P&L, no silos, simplification is what they're talking a lot about. Number 3, diversification. So simply adding capability that's different to the capability that a company has already. And mostly that's because people are trying to be able to build their capability along the consumer journey and access different pots of money. And also because clients increasingly are looking for slightly more end-to-end solutions. I mean, the examples here is, I mean, almost every agency in the world, pretty much. So I don't think anyone kind of owns this, but you know, everyone's trying to add data, everyone's trying to add tech, everyone's adding content, tech's adding content, agencies adding consultancy, data trying to add creativity. So everyone's trying to add a bit more on. Number 4, specialization. So it is what it says. You know, let's do one thing really, really well. And not try and join it all up, but be fantastic at that thing, to be the go-to player in one area. And you see this perhaps most in the slightly more technical spaces. So again, in data and analytics. You see it in production with Hogarth. Hogarth, there's a lot of decoupling of production from agencies. So production as a speciality. I met a company the other day who were in they were in ethical programmatic platforms only. So, you know, there is hyper-specialization. And I don't know whether Adam and Eve meant this when they talked about they were going to do culture, not collateral. There's a sort of decision there of what they're not going to do. Finally, vertical integration. So, you know, this is where you move across the supply chain, up or down. In whichever way you fancy, and so you can go up, as you see people doing, into probably more the kind of business consultancy space. So agencies doing that. It's actually coming the other way more as consultants are vertically integrating down. But perhaps slightly more interesting and unusual is vertically integrating intermediate owners or kind of culture owners, or whatever you want to call it. And so that's where you see Havas being bought by Vivendi, and that play there. Obviously, it helps that the son of the CEO of Vivendi is the CEO of Havas. So 5 strategies going on. By show of hands, who votes for number 1? For those who can't see, that's nobody. Number 2, simplification. Yeah, there's a bit of appetite for making things a bit less complex, but it's a meagre showing, fair to say. Diversification, adding more services. Yeah, a couple of people. So simplification is probably still winning, but there's a lot of hands to go up. Where are they going to go? Specialization. Yeah, I think this is the winner so far. So this is we're going to one thing really well, and we're going to just be fantastic at that. Okay, is anyone going to beat that? So vertical integration. Not so many. I think specialism wins. Wow, in a world of integration and end-to-end consumer journeys, most of us believe the right answer is just do one thing. Okay. So I mean, the point is not so much what people voted for. The idea of having that vote was to sort of suggest get involved, which is my main point. Get involved in that question to where I began, because it's not the question for other people. And don't be the type who wants to stay in the industry and not try and fix it. And try to answer it in how you spend your day and how you decide to go about your work. Because I think we have to think of our job as a microcosm of the industry. And we need to innovate as much in how we work as what we produce. Our creativity is in the way we go about what we do, not just what we end up creating at the end. Never work the same way twice if you can. Find other people in other agencies who have a similar mindset and see what you can hook up and do with those people. Don't ask permission from anybody. We're all in a creative business. This is not a permission business. And I don't think anyone should feel as though anyone is working anywhere where trying new things is anything other than highly encouraged. And just finally, if you've done all that, and only if you've done all that, and you still want to leave the industry, that's okay, but not before you've tried. And that's my 10 minutes.